Hi, and welcome to the English II TRS Unit for Rhetorically Analyzing and Producing Argumentative Texts preview video. I'm Chris Jury with Curriculum and Instruction, and I'll be your guide through this unit. When we look at our instructional goals for this unit, you probably noticed if you looked at the IFD, there are two performance assessments. One focuses on the pro-con around one issue. You take one mentor text that takes a pro side and then another mentor text that takes the exact opposite side on any particular issue, and you look at how did those authors build their arguments. And then that directly correlates back to the writing, where the students are going to look at a topic that is a debatable topic, something that there's multiple sides to. They're going to do research and then write their own argumentative research essay. So some things to think about with this. In the last unit, you started argumentative writing, and you probably had three things that you really focused on because we talked about that in our content conversations. So consider, what were your three things? How well were they mastered? What do they need to be able to do with the new information that's coming their way as far as argumentative texts go? They need to be able to identify it all in their reading because they're going to be asked about it. It's going to be part of their critical thinking and critical analysis of what they're reading. But it may not be absolutely necessary that they transfer all those skills to their writing. So let's take a little look at some of the skills. With the standards, we have E2.7E, which of course is the argumentative text standards for English 2. You probably already talked about a clear arguable claim. You likely talked about appeals, and you may have talked about a convincing conclusion. I'm fairly certain that everybody talked about various types of evidence because that is at the core, and it's usually when I asked you what big three things, most of you listed evidence as one of the things students struggled with and that they would need help with when you went through and taught them how to write argumentative essays. But you may not have talked about counter arguments or concessions and rebuttals. So that's definitely something you're going to want to add here. You probably want to continue all your conversations around audience because our students sometimes read and they're like, no, that wasn't a good argument, because they assume it's written for them and it didn't convince them. But when they consider who the audience is or who the reader was intended to be, it might have been a good argument. So there's some things that you might have to spend some time thinking about. All of our author's purpose standards, the E2.8s, are going to be super important. I want to call your attention to E2.8G because it really has some pieces that go really well with argumentative text, like rhetorical devices and logical fallacies. So this would be the unit where you can dive deeper into that. You might want to call those out as you analyze those texts. When you look at the research portions, these standards really apply to any informational or argumentative text, nonfiction text that we study. So our students need to be able to identify credibility and bias in those texts, if nothing else. So there are some resources linked in the companion document on Curriculum Central to help you with that, but I'm pretty sure you guys have some amazing resources on that as well. So as we think about that unit, that was a quick overview, but as we think about what's coming up, what is absolutely crucial? What do we need to identify as like gotta-dos for our students? So if we consider it just from they're going to be tested on these things, so it wouldn't be fair if they didn't know them. We know that the revision portion of the test usually asks at least one question about the thesis or position statement of an argumentative essay when they're revising. And it'll ask something like, hey, Chris didn't conclude his paper well. What call to action could he add to his concluding paragraph to make it better? So those will show up in the revision portion of the test. The reading portion of any argument, it's going to analyze an argumentative text, and it's always going to be those author's purpose techniques. And so it'll be the argumentative techniques. It may or may not call out the rhetorical fallacies and appeals. It may talk about like, hey, this was a rhetorical appeal, but it may not actually call it an appeal. They may say, how did the author appeal to his audience, but won't use the word rhetoric. So those are some things that you need to consider. Essay considerations. So when we're writing an essay, you probably, most of my campuses, when I asked them what big three, it was organization, clear claim, organization, which goes back to that clear claim, and evidence that supports that claim. So those three all fit together. And if they've got that, that's great. I'm glad that they got that. It is time to consider adding those counter arguments and the call to action for the next logical step. You probably have some students that are still struggling. You ask a student to write an essay under normal circumstances and they're not really thrilled and they need some help. You ask them in these circumstances and they may not ask for help and may not complete the assignment. So keeping the focus on that organizing structure, arguable claim, and evidence for those students who may not be engaging or who may not be mastering is going to be crucial in their writing. For those kids that have obviously counter argument, call to action, for those kids that are doing all of it well, it might be time to look at, okay, so what rhetorical devices can you add to your writing to really bring it up to the next level? There are many resources that I've tried to link on companion document around checking for bias and checking for credibility, as well as anything to support you in the writing process. But one thing I really wanted to call out as far as finding texts for you to rhetorically analyze, and this was brought to my attention by an English II teacher, the opposing viewpoints that's available on your library website page. It's a Gale database. It's organized by topic and it has multiple, like I just looked at the vaccination topic, and there's hundreds, if not thousands of articles on both sides of pro, we should mandate vaccinations, and con, like the whole anti-vaxxer argument. So those things are there. Those are definitely could be useful to you. I look forward to talking to you about anything I can do to support you, what resources you think might help you get students where you need, and what resources you might need. I look forward to talking to you in content conversations, but if you need to talk to me before then, or we haven't and you have more questions after the content conversation, please email me. My email's here on the screen. I also have office hours that are listed on Curriculum Central on Monday and Wednesday from noon to 1. I realize you may be in class from noon to 1 on Monday and Wednesday, and that doesn't work for you. Please email me and say, hey, look, I need more than an email. I need to talk to you via Zoom or via Teams, and I'll be happy to work with my schedule and try to find a time when we can work with your schedule and I can talk to you. A lot of times it's that same day and it's 10 to 15 minutes, and I'm happy to stop and help you. So thank you for your time today. Thank you for all you're doing for your students, and have a wonderful day.